My name's Jack Horton, and I'll be taking you through this tips and tricks session today. Just to start off with, because we might have a couple of people attending that don't know Stringer as well as some of the others, I thought I'd just do a quick overview of the product. So Stringer Survey Suite is the full name of the product. It comes with a number of different applications that plug into your CAD platform. This includes Stringer Topo, Stringer A-Spec, and Stringer E-Plan. For today, we'll be looking at a few tips and tricks that I've learned over my time with CSS that happen in Stringer Topo. So we'll be looking at that for the main part. The other two, we are planning to do web sessions at later dates, but for now, we're just going to be looking at Stringer Topo. So let's switch to the next one. So first off, what is a tips and tricks session all about? What these aim to achieve is to go over and look at any of the less known functions that customers may not know about, either due to just time where you haven't used them for ages, or we seem to go over the more key functions of Stringer when we're doing training. So we might not cover these during the training session, and therefore they get a bit left behind. This should update you guys, show you what hidden tricks you can use to try and save you some time and streamline your workflow. So what we'll be covering today mainly is we'll be looking at bringing in a control file, a different way to how we normally do it in training. This will be done through the CAD platform and not through a CSV file as per normal. We'll be looking at a number of the editing commands that I've found to be useful when I've done jobs out in the field. And we'll also be looking at exploring the point group commands and what that can accomplish for your data. Now, this Civil 3D job, all I have done in it prior is I have brought in a couple of points, no different to if you were setting up for a job beforehand and you pulled all the information out of a prior job, getting it ready for when you go out to set out the control, locate it, and go from there. So these points, all I've got attached is the point number, the elevation, the code, and of course the actual points themselves have an easting and northing attached to them. So we're going to be using these as the control for the observation data that you guys have located in the field and bringing it in. So I'm going to go to import and reduce here. I'm sure many of you guys know this function. It's how we bring in our data normally. Just going to navigate to where I've saved the SDR one. For today, I'll be using a Socia file, as it's just the one that I've been using for this mainly. Just override that. So here we are in good old Stringer Connect. Now, a little tip you guys might not know is how to collate all your control, how to make it all easy to look through and go over. So if we wanted to make it easy for us to spot where point 2 is and any changes that we've made when we've applied any control, normally we'd have to scan through this entire document, go, okay, we've got these points here, all that's control. We want to know what we've done to it. Right here, we've got control options. This is where we can apply any changes that we need. If I go over to here and select collate control, that's going to bring all of the control it finds throughout this observational data set and bring it to the top for us to look at. So if I select this, go yes, all of it's been brought up to the top and we can see any changes have been done with ease. It's actually pulled this out of the document and placed it all at the top, so you won't find this anywhere else, but Stringer handles this just through its programming. So now we want to look at how we can actually use this. So normally you'd go into control options, you'd select your control file, and that's how you get your control in through that Excel file. What if you don't want to do that? You've already set up prior that you've got the points in the drawing, and you just want to rip all the information out of there. Now, provided you have set up your point numbers correctly, so the point number in the drawing must match the point number you've got in the observational data. This is exactly the same as if you were bringing it in through control file. If you're bringing it in with a control file, your control point numbers must be the same for it to recognize it and go, yes, this is the point I want to change. If you do not have that, it will not register, and it's just going to go, okay, this point is useless to me, I'm not going to deal with it. So now if we go to control options and we go to get control from AutoCAD, that's going to look through the AutoCAD drawing or the Civil 3D drawing that we have open and pull it into String Connect. Exactly the same as when we were using a control file. So it's going to ask, it said it's found 5 points, the ones here. Do we want to add these? Go yes. And as you can see, the ECU Northing has updated. So it's nice. I thought, well, I believe it's a pretty good function for a different method of bringing your control in if you don't want to set up that CSV file. You can just do it in AutoCAD and bring it straight in. So I'm just going to transfer all this in. It's exactly the same as normal. You don't have to do any extra steps. Exactly the same. So you'll see this soon overlapping this 0.6 and that because it's found that control. My computer frozen. There it goes. So everything's been brought in. It's all put onto it. It's looked at the control, rotated everything, and gotten it all up to scratch. So for the next section, we're going to look at the editing commands. So I'm just going to close this drawing and open one that's already had joinal codes and been touched up a little bit. So the only thing that's been done to this drawing since you saw it in the last one is I've just set up the surface and I've run joinal codes to get everything looking all pretty for us. Now that that's been set up, we're going to look at a few functions here. First of which, I'm going to show you guys how we can multi-code certain things. So first off, we're going to have a look here. You'll see that we've got a building here and the fence line. Now, I remember when I used to do it, I used to pick up fencing sometimes and it'd be right on the edge of the building. It'd go right to where the house was. But you'd have to get two separate shots. You'd have to get the 602 and you'd have to get the 903. What we allow you to do is we actually let you multi-code. So we can have this 60210 and this 90302 yet still string them together. And you can do this in the field. You don't have to do it when you get back to the office. But we've got this command here, multiple codes. If I select that, and I select the 602 first because it's going to pull the string from that 602, and I select the 903, it's now connected those two together. It's gone in that direction due to the point numbers. But as you can see, it's kept the same string number and connected them via that way. Now, what if you were doing something like you were picking up a house and when you were doing it, you wanted to get the driveway at the same time. You wanted to multi-code the driveway in some way, but you wanted it to be a separate string. We also enable you guys to do that. I'm just going to delete this line segment here. So when we want a separate string, we've actually got this multi-code segment one. What this does, it works similar to the last one, where the first point we select, it's going to use the base code for that and tie it to the second one. But as you can see, it's picked up another string. It's not the 60210 like last time. Excuse me. It's 60202. And it's tied that to the 90303 over here, allowing you to have separate strings for the drawing. Now, so let's look at another area now. Up the top here, we can see that there's been a terrible accident. When we've picked it up, all the points have been picked up out of order, yet we know what order they're meant to be in and we want to be able to edit them. Generally, you'd have to go through, you'd have to find each of the points, fix them all up, change the point number to be, I want this one to be 1494 and change them all individually that way. Takes too long. What we've got here is normally we run the reorder distance to next, which we generally showed through our training. It's a very handy function to have, but it doesn't offer you a lot of control. What we do provide as well, though, is a reorder by selection. If we use this, we're actually able to pick what order we want it to go in. So if I run this, if these four here, which they're in order, I don't want to touch them, I just don't select them. So you start at the point you want to be the next one in the line. It's going to go, okay, 1493 was the last one I didn't select. I'm going to go from there. So I'm going to turn this one into 1494, and I'm just going to keep going. So it's storing all the information now. And once I hit enter, look at that. It's all been strung exactly how I clicked it in the order I selected. So it's overridden everything that you've set up prior and just run it through. So I like the control that it gives me. It's not as automated as the reorder distance to next. So you've got to spend a little bit more time with it, but that control I find to be worth it. So what happens if you went through your entire job? Actually, let me rephrase that. You've gone through your entire job and you found out you messed up a few of your codes. Next time you head out, you don't want to do that again. Or maybe you've got a new surveyor and they're not up to scratch with the code list yet, but you want them to be able to do a survey with ease. They've got the technical know-how, they're just not 100% confident with the codes. We actually allow you guys to customize your code list and set it up so that you could have 1 to 20 equal, well, 20 of your codes. So if I click on this one here, search and replace code settings, we get this little text document here. This text document allows us to preset a number of codes and have them turn into something else when we run this command. So you can have 1 to 20 and have 1 be a PM, 2 be a natural surface, 3 be an edge of bitumen, etc. So when you're going out, you only have to remember that 1 to 20. You don't have to remember 403 or such. And this works to numeric and alpha to alpha. You don't have to worry about conflicting arrangements. You've just got to make sure you've got this comma in the middle. So everything on this side of the comma will be what you want it to change from, while everything on this side is everything you want it to change to. So with this document, I've got everything set up to go from numeric to alpha. And if I run this now, it's first going to ask me what file I want to use to replace everything. So you can have multiple files. You can have one set up for Jane and the other one set up for Bob, if they've got their own little way of setting stuff out or picking information up. So I'm going to open that one, the one I just had set up. And it's now running through and it's changing all of these codes. So as you can see, my 104s have changed to NS. And all my numeric stuff has been changed over to alpha. So it's a fun way of changing all your code. You can go out and have a customized code list. I ran this in Western Australia. Instead of putting in, I use numeric mainly. So instead of running around going 403 for my road every single time, instead I just had 1, 2, 3. So edge of bitumen, inverted curb, back a curb. And I just ran through the entire thing. I just went 1, string number, 2, string number, 3, string number, and it took barely any time at all because I wasn't punching in the code every time. So what if you've gone through, you've done your survey, you want to look at the traverse you've done, but you don't want to look at every single line. You just want to go, okay, I just want to see everything that I've traversed so far. We've actually got a little command which isn't too well known. Not a lot of people seem to use it, but if we run ls trav, so this command here for everyone who's looking for it, I've just typed that into the command line. If I run this and then select the polyline, so when you've done your traverse, you've got the polyline set up, it's running through everything you've got. You select this, it's now asking me for a point table. If I then select off to the side here, you'll see it's given me the bearing of each line along with the distance of each line. So it's a nice way you can just check to see what exactly your traverse is looking like bearing and distance wise. So you can just plug them together easy. And then when you're done, you could even move them, separate them out and put them on each of the lines fairly easily. So next thing we're going to look at is we're actually going to look at a way we can label our lines And instead of having to rotate and everything, we can instead just have it on the angle of an object that we select. So we've got a command stringer dtext. You've got to make sure you have the underscore after str. And running this, we're brought into a little form here. In this form, we're able to select any text style that you've got already loaded. So each of the CAD platforms, I'm sure a number of you guys have a customized text style that you guys like to use. Provided that's loaded into your CAD platform, we're able to select it in here. When you're in here, to make sure that you've got the right one, let's say I want to use the area one. Our little example here will show you exactly how it's going to look. It'll tell you what text style it's going to use, what font it's going to come in as, the layer, and what kind of color it's going to come in with. So I want to use this one, that's fine. I'm going to go use current. And I'm going to select this line here. It's now asking me where I want to start it from. So I'm going to say, let's start it from here. And I want the text string to be this line, just for something to write down. It's now put that in. If I activate my properties, you'll see it's been put in on the area layer as I asked it to. It's been put in as a blue color, and the text style has been put in as area. We're able to move this at will. It's able to be selected, everything else, but it's been put in on that object's angle. So you're not having to fiddle around with your rotate command when you're using your text. You can just plop it straight in. This is, the place I see this being the most used is with something like a housing set out, when you're trying to put all your distances in, instead of having to go through each one, click every line, figure out what it is, and then type it in manually, or even looking at the plan, you just plop it in. It's already on the angle you needed. If it's rotated at all, you're not having to fiddle around with it. You just go drag, drop, done. So string numbers can be a tricky business at times. If you're doing 10 or so, you generally remember them fine enough. But when you're doing some of your bigger jobs, you get into some numbers like over 50 and such, and you start to forget them unless you've been writing them down. Writing them down is a good way to keep track of them and everything, but you lose track of it over a time. So that's wrong drawing. I'm going to show you guys a way that I like to use when I was doing this, which is we allow you guys to increment your string numbers based on ... So instead of having to write EB50 every time, you can instead write EB1 ... And that's going to automatically say, okay, EB1, and then the next available string number. What you do want to do is, if you're doing a road, you want to make sure you separate that by EB1 and EB2, so it knows to go from left to right. And if we run this normally, you'll see that it's just going to join the dots normally. To join all codes, we've got straight lines going through everything. Not too impressive. We're meant to have a bunch of pathways coming through here. But let's see what happens when I say, oh, there's a ... parameter here. We better look for that. So over here in edit, we've got increment strings based on ... And look at that. We've now got our pathways going off. It's shown them. And it's incremented everything based on the ... It's gone, okay, right here, this is one side of the road. This is the first 3 points I want to do before it's hit another ... And where it's hit the ... it started a new string number. So when you're in the field, instead of having to remember it all the time, as I said earlier, you just go out, you go EB1 ... EB2 ... every time you're picking up the edge of bitumen and the back of curb. And then you bring it back to the office and you just go, you plug it in, you hit the increment strings based on ... and everything looks good. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Shane, or?
No, I think that's good. I guess the just the confirmation, any codes you pick up that you want to string. You could just put a ... to start a string, and every time you want to start a new string with that same code, it's put in the code in the field and the ... Of course, you could add the ... back in the office, but it's all about efficiency of the field pickup. And this will span multiple days, so that ... parameter is just starting a new string, and then the software will work out how to increment that based on the point numbers.
Well, one thing I should probably mention as well is this is also compatible with the parameter commands here, which we enjoy showing off. So as I'm quite fond of saying, everything you can do in the office, you can do in the field. So when you're out in the field, you're drafting your drawing so that when you come back to the office, you have to do as little office time as possible. So I'm just going to exit this. I'm going to open up another drawing, just at M2 again. W2. Now, moving away from the editing commands, we're going to have a look at the point groups. So we've got this drawing here. All the point groups have been set up with Civil 3D in mind. If you're using BrixCAD or AutoCAD, you can set up your point groups when you select the point group command. That'll give you a similar but different menu that will allow you guys to do this as well. So, selecting the one we want to use, we've got a number of commands here. We're able to move the drawing, we're able to rotate the drawing, we're able to scale it by everything in this point group. So if we do move, instead of having to manually select everything and possibly missing something, you've instead selected the entire point group knowing you've got everything because everything's been loaded into it. And by hitting move, we're just given the basic move command, nothing special, but it is handy if you just want to make sure you've got everything. So I've now moved that based on a point, shifted it across. The surface in that needs to be updated because we've just moved the points. We haven't moved anything else. So if I just run join all codes, that's all now looking pretty. Get rid of that line that looks horrid. There we go. But if we go back to this, the more impressive one is our scale function. Now, when you've been out in the field, you've done your GPS survey, you don't want to be scaling everything by the 3D plane. All the points you picked up, they're perfectly fine for height. You just want to change them in terms of your XY axis, not your Z. So what we allow you to do is we allow you to scale everything, but only by the 2D axis. So your X and Y, we don't touch the Z axis. So if we run this, exactly the same as normal, but we've got our own little custom one. We can run this as per normal. You select your base, enter your scale amount of 0.999997, say. It's now scaled everything by that amount except for the Z axis, which remains untouched. So all of your points won't be touched with the Z. So now everything's been scaled, your X and Y's are where they should be. And yeah, you just go from there. So after you've done all of your editing, you need to export somehow. So if we go you select the point group, we've got a button here called export. So we want to push it out to whatever total station that we're using. If I select OK, we're brought into another menu. You're able to select what file format you want to export. For this one, we want to export an SDR33. That's what I'm using at the moment. That's what I want to look at. We've also got the capability to export a GSI, a CSV, a GRI, R, and all that. So you'll see here that it says no file, so it's not knowing where to save it at the moment. If we go select file name, we're asked where we want to save it to. So I'm just going to save it to webinar files. I'll delete that one. And I'm just going to save it in here. Yes, want to replace it. We get a little description telling us exactly where it's going to save it. So if you lose track of it, you can just check this and go, okay, yep, that's where I've put it. And it also makes sure to tell us what exactly we're exporting. So we're going to be exporting the contourable layer, which is everything in here that's making up this surface. So if I run process, that's now exported. I'll just pull up that CSV file. Oh, taskbar's vanished. Where are we? Here it is. So as you can see, everything's been exported. We've got our easting, northing, elevation, and code. You'll notice that it's changed back to numeric. That's because I didn't save that drawing earlier, so it's switched over to numeric, switched back to numeric. And this can be loaded into whatever total station you're using. And yeah, we do support the export of multicoding, as should be expected. So your machine will register this and run it up as per normal. And there are a couple of different options there, as I showed you earlier. Now, finally, I'm just going to open up another drawing here. We've got the ability to compare any points to a prior constructed surface. So say you've gone out, you're doing a check survey, and you want to make sure that the surface they've created matches what you guys have created. So bringing in the surface prior and then overlapping it with points, make sure the points are not applied to the point group that makes up the surface. So whatever you've used to make the surface, in my case, I've used the contourable layer, that point group. You cannot select contourable and then compare it to that surface. You will just get a 0 value because the surface is made up of that one. So I've made another point group here. I've just made a couple of points on here, added them to the point group 01, told it not to add those to the surface, and then I'm going to compare it. So it's gone, okay, these 4 are over this surface. I want to see what the difference is. And if we just select that, it tells us straight out that the difference is 1.4 meters. We instantly go, okay, there's something wrong here. We've got to look into it. We're able to save this as a CSV if you want to keep it for your own personal records or send it off to someone saying, look, this is what we found. Do you guys mind having a look at it? And yeah, those are a few of the functions that I've found to be quite interesting. So yeah, that's about all I've got. Anyone got any questions for me, Shane?
There was a question about control points that was answered. So there's a question here, can you use the ... for string and the 0, 1 in the same data sets?
I assume that you're saying, do you want to use basic string numbers and then you want to switch to the ... If that's what the question is, then yes, you can do that. If you did EB01 and then later on you did EB10 ... that would work fine. You'd have no issues there.
That's true. And if you had EB01 and then you used EB ... later on, the 0, 1 is considered to be used, and the ... would find the next available. I think that's the question. So yes, you could mix hard string numbers and the ... parameter. Not a problem at all.
Yeah.
So there's a question here about offset and hatch command.
Yes, I did mean to show that.
Do you want to steal the podium back and just show that to the audience?
Yep.
So thank you to whoever has looked at the bullet list of items, things Jack promised to show.
Yes,
he did skip over the offset and hatch command, which is a very cool drafting tool, but I'll let Jack talk through that.
I'm just going to draw a P line here, polyline. Just make this up. So I've got a nice little polyline here. Up in the corner in string extras, we've got offset and hatch. What this allows us to do is it brings up this form here and allows us to save a series of settings for hatching buildings or brick corners, etc., etc. Similar to when we did the command earlier where we looked at the text, this will read our CAD platform, see which hatchings we have loaded, and you'll be able to select it in here. As we can see, it saved mine from earlier, so this does cross different drawings. I want it to come in as the 601 layer, but you can have it come through as whatever you need. The rotation for this, I'll set it to 45, so everything's coming in on that angle. The scale, we'll just have it set to 2, that's fine, there's no issue there. The offset amount is what you want that barrier layer to be. So where you want the hatch to stop and go in. So you just select the polyline you want it to occur to, and that's automatically applied. As you can see, we've got our nice hatching. If we decide we don't like that scale, we want to make it something else, you just type it in here, go back to your drawing, and it's automatically updated. So it is dynamic in that sense. If you want to have it on the outside, all we do is we put a minus in front of it here, click back on the drawing, and it flips over to the other side, which is a really cool function. So that's what I meant to show you there. I do apologize for missing that. I guess I'll flip back to you, Shane.
Cool, thanks for that, Jake. So look, thank you very much for picking us up on that. I think we've sort of gone through and answered the questions that have come up. If you have any follow-up questions, please drop us an email and ask. Again, thank you, Jack, very much for that presentation. I hope everybody found something, some sort of nugget of new knowledge there, or a different way of processing things. Just in terms of what we do with Webcasts, we are saving this. We will upload it to the YouTube channel, so please avail yourselves of getting up onto that YouTube page to watch this at your own leisure. Our next webcast is 4th of June. It's probably more geared to the civil engineering fraternity, but we'll be looking at road safety tools and functionality in civil site design. So if you're a civil site design user, come along and see what sort of functionality is there. And just in general, there's a link here to our webcast hub. So in there you can see the forecast, normally a month ahead, of what webcasts we've got planned and we're going to do. So you can register those at any time. And there's also a suggestion and feedback area at the bottom of that page. And we encourage you to give us ideas on things that you would like to know more about, and we can look to schedule those in as, you know, educational webcasts. So rather than us dreaming up what we think you would like to know about, let us know of any topics you think are of good value to, you know, drill down into and learn more about. So thank you again, Jack, for the presentation. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we look forward to seeing you in a future webcast.
All right. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.